take up some CCAs, which I kind of regretted because I went to computer engineering, and computer engineering require physics and additional mathematics, which I didn't have because of my lack of secondary school education. So taking out a lot of CCAs and at the same time trying to, form out that foundation was very difficult for me. But, I met very nice people. I still break down, I'll be very honest. I had occasional anxiety breakdowns, but there were people that were nice enough, to believe in me and to accept me for who I am rather than mocking me. So I remember in midnight, after the first semester ended, I think around September, I received a email about the grades I received for my first semester. And when I opened it, I was shocked because it was a perfect GPA. So imagine someone with like a terrible O-level score with no secondary school education getting a perfect GPA. I screamed lah. I screamed, I cried, and I really had that realization that if I can do well now, I have the power to rewrite my narrative. I am not bound by what people mention about me, by what people think of me, by what they wish to perceive me as, be it as a villain in their narrative, be it as a troublemaker. So after getting the GPA 4, my motivation levels really leveled up lah, essentially in RPG terms. It leveled up to a very extreme extent. And I decided that I'll take fate, I'll control fate with my own hands. So I quitted my CCAs, but I founded my own CCA. So stress levels wise, it just increased lah, essentially. I was a trippy ambassador. I founded my own CCA to empower youths like myself with opportunities. I joined multiple organizing committees to organize events for my school, freshman orientation program, graduation yearbook, liaising with stakeholders. And I eventually, with a lot of hard work and fighting against the school, I became the top graduate. So the Lee Kuan Yew medal that you heard of is basically the top graduate of not just my course, but also the institution. Uh, and it was fought with a lot of hard work because my school decided to say that Ryan's on medication, Ryan's mentally unsound, to block me from getting top graduate. But the main school, so in Polytechnic, it's a bit like university. There's a main office, and then there's the different majors, right? The different faculties. So the one who decides the medal isn't my school, it was the main office. And the main office knows about my existence. They know my story. They did a background check on me. And, one question that really hit hard to me till this day, as I can remember, is, you know, if you're a part of the panel, how would you select the next top graduate? And I mentioned I'll choose the top graduate based on their journey, not based on their results, not based on their beginnings, but based on their journey. And, you know, it was only then I realized that they actually did a background check because they realized that I suffered a lot in secondary school. I suffered a lot in Polytechnic to get to where I am. And the one of them, she basically mentioned that it was a nightmare you couldn't wake up of. And I just said, I thought I couldn't get out of that nightmare, but I survived. And that's what all that matters. Yeah. So you go next slide. So is this the ending of my journey? Like, wow, this is like a fairy tale ending, right? Like Cinderella, abused by the stepsisters and then suddenly, get married to the prince. Or all those typical movies when the good guy suffers and then in the end, he can't get their revenge or succeeded in their own way. But the truth is, this isn't the ending of my journey. It's only just the beginning. Mental stigma in Singapore is still very apparent. People say that people like myself don't deserve opportunities, um, that mental health conditions do not exist, and it doesn't create the safe space needed for people like me to grow. So, even though I succeeded, I'm actually not the common story. In fact, most people in my shoes wouldn't have existed to begin with. I was lucky to meet people, and I was lucky to meet social workers and doctors. I was lucky to meet friends beyond Singapore that helped me to get where I am today. So you go to the next slide. I'm very lucky to meet these people in my life. I founded the Catalyst Collective to ensure that outliers like myself, youth who are struggling with mental health, have an ecosystem and community they can return to for them to flourish without relying on the system. I met friends who stick by me, who actually literally watched me grow up from 2014 until now, made new friends from Polytechnic, joined Global Shapers, becoming the Hitachi Young Leader. I am sincerely very thankful to all these opportunities that was given to me, all these people that I've met, that makes this journey, no matter how difficult it is, at least walkable for me. And if anything that you guys, I mean, my story is very long-winded. There's a lot to my story, but if there's anything I would like all of you guys to take away from this, is to create a community for people who are struggling. You don't have to be someone special. You don't have to be President Obama. You don't have to be, someone who's rich. All you need to do is be a good friend to support one another in times of need. And sometimes that's all the difference that can change, that can make a difference in that someone's life. And that person may go on to save other people and you create a catalyst effect. So with that, if you go to the next slide, I will end off by saying my very popular tagline, empowering youth, rewriting narratives. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much to Mr. Ryan. Oh, wow. And that was only the first speaker, guys. How are you feeling? Okay? All right. So, thank you so much to Mr. Ryan for joining us through Zoom. I know he could not come here physically, but hopefully, even though he can join us only through Zoom, it was still very powerful, and hopefully, it will motivate all of you to maybe do something about how we're going to help build, help and build share the narrative. So next, let us welcome our second speaker, which is Mrs. Anita Abu Bakar, also joining us from Zoom. So, a little bit about Mrs. Anita is that she's the founder and president of the Mental Illness Awareness and Support Association, MIASA, and holds a bachelor's degree in Computer Information Systems with a minor in Management Information Systems from Tulsa University, USA, and Master of Business Admin in Islamic Banking and Finance from IIUM. Her journey as a mental health advocate actually started after she experienced her own mental health problem. And being a mental health survivor herself, Juanita is prominent on raising awareness about mental illness. So some of her accomplishments also include establishing the Orchid Clubhouse, which is Malaysia's first mental health crisis management and activity center, which is peer-led and peer-run, initiated and appointed as the chairperson for the National Advocacy for Mental Health Association NAMPA in 2021. And in MIASA, what do they actually do? They help initiate, they have various support services and activities that help initiate, including MIASA's 24/7 crisis hotline, conducting home visits, peer and family support, circle time, various types of therapy, drama and speech classes, support employment program, and other mental health programs also on the radio. Wow. All right, so that's a little bit about Miyasa. Let's listen to founder herself. So let's welcome Puan Anita.
Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. Right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I believe I have about 15 minutes. I hope I will be able to provide some insights to my journey. Hopefully it will be beneficial for everyone. First and foremost, I love this theme. There's so much power in narration, and it can provide a lot of hope and a way out, which promotes action and life-changing experiences for many when done right. So thank you so much, guys. Great job. For those of you that have not heard my story, I thank you for being here. For those that continue to support my efforts, the efforts of MIASA, the mental health NGO that I initiated in 2016, thank you deeply. I appreciate you holding space, allowing me into your thoughts and hopefully in your hearts too, and for supporting all the efforts and advocacy work of MIASA. I actually caved to stigma 9 years ago when I was first diagnosed with a mental health condition. And although I struggled with mental health issues since I was a kid, obviously being a child, I wasn't fully aware of it. A lot of my struggles then I thought were normal, although I always felt as if I was the odd one out. And it was really because of my belief system that I had. I don't come from, I come from an average Muslim family, but I would have a lot of conflicting thoughts during the time. And it would really trouble me. It troubled me a lot um, in terms of my thoughts. I really didn't understand a lot of the things that were that I felt about um, whatever issues that might crop up and why my thinking or my thought process differed from others in that sense. And my experience with mental health issues and then developing into a mental health condition is something that I would never wish upon anyone. And although the message of hope is that if you are struggling with any kind of mental health issues or a mental health condition, you can recover from it, but it is of excruciating pain. It's emotional pain, psychological pain, and it's extremely painful because one, it's not something that is visible to the naked eye, which means that it's difficult for you to articulate it, especially when you yourself don't understand what you're going through. It's difficult for you to reach out for the help because I've been normal before. And so I know the limitations of understanding about mental health and, of course, the struggles of people with a mental health condition. And your struggles are not immediately evident to the next person or to the normal person, which could be your family members, could be your friends, could be your colleagues, your classmates. And this makes it extremely difficult and you feel truly alone. And then on top of that, you feel ashamed and there's a fear of a lot of things. So up here is truly catastrophic. And it is as if I always say this where your brain tries to kill you. And it was a long and tiring and lonely journey, all in all. And I remember this one particular day, and I don't know why I remember this day because when you're going through a mental health condition, there's a lot of things that you try to not done deliberately though that is blocked out, so you don't remember some of the things that happened. But I really remember this instant, right? This particular day where I was in the house. I was always in the house. That I could hear people laughing and chit-chatting outside because it was in the evening, right? People, go for a jog or just strolling, down the streets with friends and families, etc. That I would think to myself, they don't know how lucky they are that they're able to do what they want. They can chat about the weather. And here I am struggling in so much pain, alone in my thoughts and thinking, when will it get better? Or could it even get better? And would I one day be able to function as before? And even if I could, when would it be? All these questions that I had absolutely no answers to. And recovery seemed so distant. And truthfully, I didn't even think that it was possible during the time. And let me tell you guys, it is such a painful place to be in that particular moment where you're in this deep and dark hole and you don't know how to get yourself out of it, right? And when you don't understand what is happening, you don't have, it is as if you don't have control over it. Um, you feel stuck, you feel trapped, you feel defeated. But the thing about being in that situation, which I could only really appreciate it tremendously when I was out of it, right? Because when you are at that absolute rock bottom, there comes genuine, truly genuine reflection, right? Humility, patience, gratefulness, connectedness with things that matter, um, with people that matter to you. And so being at that rock bottom, not everyone has had that experience to be truly at that very bottom, right? There's so much learning that you can do. And through that experience that I had being from, the many, because the rock bottoms wasn't just once. So there were a few rock bottoms that really happened during that whole process and journey with the condition. And for the first time in my life, that 9 years ago, that experienced that journey, I lost control of my life, right? I could no longer function as a normal human being. I became afraid of everything. And I'm an overachiever. I've always been an overachiever, and that was also part of the problem, right? So when I lost functionality, I could no longer work. I couldn't take care of my family. I couldn't be alone. I couldn't even do the normal things that, all of us most probably take for granted, right? Um, I couldn't take care of the kids. I couldn't even hear my kids' voice because it would trigger me. I couldn't even read a book. Because one of my hobbies are, I've got several hobbies, but I like to read, I like to watch movies. I love writing, but I could not do any of those. I couldn't even watch a comedy. Sometimes my husband would come and say, "Why don't you watch a movie? Why don't you watch a comedy? Something that and that's what people always say that you don't need to use your brain for." But I couldn't even do that. Any kind of stimulants of that kind, it would trigger me, and then I would panic. It would become very difficult to breathe, that kind of thing. And one of the things I really, really disliked during my entire struggle was obviously, the emptiness. That was very, very hard and painful. But I hated, lack of a better word, well, actually, I disliked rainy days. It would be so gloomy, and I felt that time would pass by so slowly. And I didn't have any energy. Doing anything was so tiring, right? It's as if your energy is depleted completely because you're channeling this energy to just trying to be there every single day, right? Um, Trying to manage that fear that you have, that anxiousness that you're feeling, that sadness, that crippling, emptiness that you're feeling, and that numbness. So all of these things require so much energy that at the end of the day, I mean, at the beginning of the day, even you're you're not able to function. And I felt really tired and scared, and I panicked every day, and it was so frustrating, it was so tiring, and crying became my best friend, and fear obviously my closest enemy, but it was just present, hand in hand. I know it sounds so gloomy, but trust me, there's a lot of hope um on the next half of the story. But I know that a lot of people might be wondering, who helped you, or where was everyone during the time. That is just my point of view, right? When I'm, going through that journey. Obviously, in that journey, alhamdulillah, truly thankful that I had my mom. The moment that I I fell into that deep and dark hole. The first person that I called was my mom. She immediately came and lived with me or stayed with me for the next 6 months. And she was the one there for me and my husband, of course, and my kids, although I couldn't be with my kids, but they were the ones that held me together, right? That was my support system during the time. And I had two good friends. Actually, I have a lot of good friends, but these were the two that I relied on or I leaned upon, during that struggle. And they were the ones that made me able to go through my days. I was like a baby. I didn't. And what this means is I wasn't able to function as a normal human being, right? So I lost functionality. So they would be the ones that, would WhatsApp or call me or come visit me or be with me in the house and say, okay, today this is what you do. So they would provide all these suggestions. Like they were my, calendar, and they would guide me on, what are the things that I should be doing to fill up my time. And because, uh, that was something that I lost in that recovery journey. And I came to a point where I felt that I've tried everything. And now, when I'm on this other end, that I hear this a lot from my peers, from people that reach out to me, and when they say, I've tried everything. So I came to the point that to me, I tried everything that I thought possible. And and I think one of the things that really hit me hard was one day when my husband told me, you're not trying hard enough. And what you're doing is wrong, he said, because you are pushing everyone away when you should be pulling everyone closer to you. And I think that was my turning point in the sense that it hit me and it hurt me so much that I was able to have that genuine reflection with humility that I understood. Although I don't understand it like how I understand it today, but I understood it enough where when my kids came home from school, because again, I wasn't able to take care of my kids, so my mom was the one that did that. I remember a day where they had their exams and they were in the kitchen, eating and then studying with my mom. And I was just at the corner of the house, sitting there at my usual spot, looking at them, looking at my mom teaching them. And I felt so defeated, ultimately defeated as a mom and as a person, so helpless. And it was a very, very difficult place to be in. And what I did was that night, after that genuine reflection, that I hugged my kids and I slept with them after a long time of not being, together. That um, that was when anger kicked in, and I wasn't angry towards anyone, but I was angry with the condition because it crippled me, right? And that was when that willpower that I needed kicked in, and that was when that recovery process happened. I took ownership, I took control of my condition, and then everything fell into place. And that doesn't mean that it was easy. It's the hardest thing that I've ever gone through in my entire life, hands down. But that was, that turning point that enabled me to go through that recovery process. And I remember, so vividly too, the times when it got better, right? The time where I finally felt that I could breathe, the time where I felt that I had maybe 20 minutes that I felt okay, that I felt normal again. And I remember feeling so grateful, so surprised and happy. Um, And that was maybe one of the first times that I smiled after so long because I felt at peace, right? Because now, I feel some normalcy, even though it was about 20, maybe 20 minutes to an hour. And that gave me hope. And hope is everything when you're in that journey. And that 20 minutes or that hour became 2 hours. And then it became, a day, it became 2 days. Slowly but surely it improved. And I think one of the things that really helped was also I heard someone say, not to me, um, that if you can have, 3 good days per week, that's good enough. And if half of the day was good, that's also good enough. And there was so much hope in what that person said that it was as if it provided a validation for me that despite my struggles, that maybe it was possible for me to have, 3 good days too. So I looked forward and I knew that this moment that was so difficult, it would pass. And I think that was what really, really, helped me in that recovery process. And after going through all that, I remember one day my husband and I were having a conversation, and he said to me, "Why don't you go public with your condition?" And I was obviously shocked, right? I was like, why would I do that? Everyone's going to think that, your wife's crazy. And then he said, well, I know you're not crazy. And I think it would truly help a lot of people if they were to hear your story and how you came out of it. And I gave it a thought, and I was already sharing, my story to a few people that were really close to me. Because obviously, I internalized stigma, so I was so ashamed, so afraid. But the moment I took ownership of my condition, when I was in control, that I realized that it might be of help to others. And that was how the conceptualization of MIASA came about. I realized that if I was able to create a platform where people felt safe and not judged, that it would provide, a way out, that people don't have to fight their battles alone, that they don't have to be silent due to stigma and discrimination or injustices and not feel supported with the already, challenging condition. So that was what happened when I went through it. And obviously, it was such a hard and long and lonely road, but I am forever and extremely grateful that, God afflicted me with the condition, because through this condition, guys, I was able to, I am today able to relate to people that are struggling with whatever it might be it a condition, an illness, hardships, adversities of, you know, whatever it possibly, might be. But I am able to relate to that level because I understand desperation extremely well. I've been there, I felt it, I've gone through it, I came out of it. And if it wasn't because of my condition, I wouldn't, well, I don't think, at least I don't think, that I would have formed MIASA or, help a person um, that is struggling or in crisis or in pain. And so when the pandemic hit us, I was in a much better situation. I was, you know, at a place in my life where I understood what it meant, you know, when God took my health in a split second, and without Him, I'm powerless. Um, and not taking things for granted and being grateful with what I have and turning that pain that I experience into purpose, into being of service to others, into providing hope, providing a way out for other people. And I think that is truly a privilege to be able to have felt that, to be able to experience that, and to be able to give back through that adversity and challenges that I went through. So, all in all, despite all these challenges, despite whatever, adversities and calamities and, all the things that we go through in life, because this is life happens, right? That today, because of everything that has happened, it has created so much opportunity for all of us to be talking about mental health in a huge way, talking about social issues in a huge way, that we can now create a better and safer world for the future generations, for the future generation, and for the generations that follow. And I hope that we can all translate these conversations that we're having into action, because nobody deserves to be left behind, and everyone deserves recovery, and everyone deserves that chance to thrive, and we must enable it for everyone. So I hope that with all this knowledge and information that we have today, that we can build back better, and that we can build change better. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope it was beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Anita. As you can see, just because you are alone does not make you lonely. And thank you so much to that Panita for sharing such a deep and meaningful insight. Hopefully, all of us can take a lot from your experience. And thank you so much for joining us, even though you cannot also join us physically. But joining us from Zoom has definitely shown us a lot about the importance of, even though
Thank
that
you.
you feel like you're surrounded by people, like I said, just because you are alone does not make you alone. All right. So now let's move on to our next speakers. Yes, speakers plural. And next we have a Chick Paris and also Mrs. Jihada. Before that, a little bit about our next speaker. Oh, right.